Way ahead of you, little buddy. Are there cattle in Idaho? I heard it's not a real beef and potatoes kind of state.
Okay, so I have the pleasure to talk to David here. Dave, why don't you introduce yourself before we sort of dive into our conversation today?
Sure. My name is David Andrew Weeb. I'm the founder of MusicEntrepreneurHQ.com. I'm a musician myself. I've taught music. I've been involved in the production side of music. Basically, pretty much anything you could think of. Investing, freelancing. I've done a ton of work in the music industry.
Hi, this is Christopher, founder of Musical You, and welcome to the Musicality Podcast. On today's show, I'm joined by David Andrew Weeb. David is a man of many projects, and as well as writing on his site, MusicEntrepreneurHQ.com, and hosting the New Music Industry podcast. He is also a songwriter, he performs regularly with 2 bands, and he's written a book, The New Music Industry.
Hello and welcome to the Music Money Podcast. Today, my guest is David Andrew Weeb. David is the 5-time self-published and 3-time best-selling author of The New Music Industry.
David Andrew Weeb, welcome to the Empower Network. Thanks for being here.
I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My guest today is David Weeb. He is a musician, but however, he knows that other musicians have a hard time promoting themselves. The business side of things is not always easy to do. How do you make money out of it? How do you draw attention? There is all that business hat that a lot of musicians don't want to do, but in order to get their music out there, they need to learn it. And he's learned that the hard way.
Welcome to Spark Infinity Office Hours, where creative journeys unfold in real time. In these intimate sessions, our hosts open their creative playbooks to share fresh discoveries, current experiments, and hard-won insights from their personal artistic paths. Whether diving into recent breakthroughs or working through creative challenges, each office hours session offers a raw, unfiltered look at the creative process in action. Join us to explore the practical tools, mindset shifts, and unexpected revelations that shape our ongoing artistic evolution. The quote of the day goes something like this: Marketing is the art of finding clever ways to dispose. Oh, hold on. Marketing is not the art of finding clever ways to dispose of what you make. It is the art of creating genuine customer value. Who said that? Philip Kotler. Today's date is December 4th, 2025. And if you happen to be watching this on any other day, you are much better at time travel than I am. And I need to learn from you. You need to tell me your knowledge. We are continuing our series on self-publishing. In fact, we are concluding tonight. This was supposed to be finished at the end of November. Took an impromptu break last week, but we're back to finish this out and round this out. And we'll see where December takes us from here. Maybe we'll do a hangout. Maybe not. Maybe we'll do another live stream. Maybe not. For sure, I'm going to continue to focus on the Leadership Lab Bootcamp videos, which have been going up daily on my YouTube channel, within the Spark Infinity group, on my blog, and yeah, even on X. Who knows why? Today, we're talking about marketing and momentum, building a sustainable author career from launch to long-term success. Let's dive right in. Our first topic is marketing without feeling sleazy. As per usual, there might be a few good tips you can take away from the slides. Check out the slide, read what's on the slide. You'll get a few things from there, probably. Here are some things that I find most beneficial or most salient when it comes to marketing without feeling sleazy. First, make it a moral imperative to market your book. And we could say promote, we could say get exposure. Use whatever term makes you feel a little more comfortable about the whole idea. But I would suggest don't delay in making it a moral imperative. Throughout history, writers have written or have wrote. Writers have written because they expected to get paid for their work. Yeah, weird, right? But there was no other reason to write. Writing was hard. People didn't just write things down, maybe little journal entries and stuff like that, maybe for assignments in schools. But if you really think about it, how much stuff have you, unless you are a writer, which of course many of you are going to be because you're interested in self-publishing, but how many people do you know who actually still write on a frequent basis, let alone on a daily basis? Not many. Writers should expect to get paid for their work because it's not easy work. So make your book so good. This is the point. Make your book so good that not sharing it will be a disservice to your audience. Or stack the value so high that the decision is a no-brainer. Like if you buy my book, you also get my course, and you also get my coaching program, and you also get access to a private Facebook group. Whatever it is, stack the value so high that people can't say no. They have to say yes. They'd be insane to say no. So those are a couple of ways of approaching this as a moral imperative. But I've heard this before from some of the other entrepreneurs that I've talked to, and I've talked to many, and they said they made their offer such that it was so valuable and they cared so much about their mission, and they cared so much about the product and what they were creating and what they were offering and how it would impact humanity and how it would make a difference for humanity and how it would actually help and support people, that sharing it would be not sharing it would be a disservice to humanity. Make your book something that if you did not share it, it'll be a disservice, because that will motivate you to share it. Next, make your book something that sells itself. Why go to all the trouble of writing a book, 2, 3, 4, 500 pages, 40,000 words, 60,000 words, 80,000 words? Why to go all that trouble to put together something that people don't give a crap about. Why? No, I'm asking you. It's something to consider before writing your book. And if you're writing it because you're passionate about the subject, because you think it should exist, because it's a hobby or something that you just enjoy doing, nothing wrong with that, right? But don't have any expectation that you're going to see any sales on the back end of it. Better advice or better process, think of something that sells itself. Nowadays, I bet if you talked about AI and offered people tutorials on prompting and different cool things you've gotten out of using AI, it sucks, by the way. ChatGPT still sucks, in my opinion. It's not very good. Claude is better. But the AI tools, honestly, they're not that good. I said a year ago, I was asked, I had a friend who asked me, where do you see AI, where do you see large language models going from here? And I said, they're not going to get much better. And you know what? They haven't gotten much better. They've added some features. Oh, yeah, for sure. But they haven't gotten much better because they're not sentient. They don't think for themselves. These are computer programs. At some point, yes, maybe we will achieve some sort of artificial intelligence, sentience, or consciousness or awareness, but we're not there. And the AI tools have not gotten a whole lot better. Just putting it out there. But if you made your book about AI tutorials, how to use AI to get the best results, I think you'll be tapping into mass consciousness. There'll be an audience for that. So think of it this way: your book is your marketing. Don't decouple it, and don't decouple it from sales, because doing so not only makes the process of marketing or promoting your book harder, but often unnecessary when you've identified a desire in the market and have created a product to fill it. Yes, I know it may seem like this is not going to apply to the fiction crowd, people who are fiction writers, sci-fi, romance, whatever it is. And believe me, it's your job to be thinking about how it does apply. You don't get away with saying it doesn't apply. You need to think about how it applies and how you can use this advice to your advantage. Next, make your book a reference guide. You could even do this with a fiction book, believe me. Make your book a resource people refer back to, or have to refer back to, or feel compelled to. That's probably the best one. Feel compelled to refer back to over and over. If people have questions like, how do I do that? Or what tool did they mention? Or do they have an AI prompt for that? Or is there a diagram or table illustrating this concept? Those are the kinds of things that people like to go back to over and over again. It could be a large list of tools, maybe, if they're good tools and they're tools you use. If it's a specific process that people need to follow, maybe a meditation process, maybe how to write a blog post that actually gets viral traffic. You know what I mean? The kind of things that people are curious about and actually want to do and be able to accomplish. Or here's a table, like in the book, Work Less, Make More, by one of my teachers, James Schramko. He's got this table that tells you how to better monetize your business and keep recurring income and increase income and all this kind of stuff. Super useful. Would refer back to it over and over again because it's so good. Put something like that in your book. And I understand, again, comes with a disclaimer. I understand this applies more to nonfiction than fiction. But if you're writing fiction, it's your job to figure out how this does apply, how this principle does apply to your writing, not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Finally, make invitations. Invite people, not just to buy or download your book, but also to send you comments and suggestions. Be a part of your community. Join your email list. This literally looks like saying to people, hey, if you enjoyed this piece of content, hey, if you enjoyed coming to this live stream, hey, if you enjoyed watching this video, hey, if you enjoyed reading this blog post, hey, if you enjoyed my latest newsletter, come and check out my book. Simple. I invite, and let's set aside the come check out, but like, I invite you to check out my book. I invite you to purchase my book. I invite you. So much easier, far less pressure, right? If you approach it from that way. Next, building your author platform before, during, and after launch. Since a lot of these do tend to overlap, I'm not going to be spending a lot of time pointing out what's before, what's during, and what's after. But I think for the most part, it's actually self-explanatory. First thing is to set up your website at earliest convenience. I mean, wherever you are right now, because some of you probably already have books out there, but no website. Some of you almost have your book done, but no website. If you already have a website, great. Like you're pretty much ahead of the pack if you've already got one. But you need to set one up at earliest convenience. Make sure, and it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to have loads of content. A lot of author websites are very simple, and they show people what books are available. Because, I mean, let's face it, if people aren't willing to buy your darn book, it's $20, $30. I mean, there's just going to be probably there's some kind of misalignment in your messaging or your marketing or who you're appealing to, or it's probably nothing to do with pricing, right? Like books are easy sells, or at least they should be, as long as you got the right audience in front of them. So set up your website at early convenience and keep it simple. Next, prioritize email list growth, and really at every stage. But I mean, the more emails you can collect in advance, the better. But even so, I think this goes even above like writing a blog post or creating content. Do whatever you can to get people on your list. And the best way to do that generally is to create what they call a lead magnet, having something that brings people in, that makes them want you to give their email address in exchange for something valuable. Maybe it's a free chapter. I don't know how well that works anymore. It never worked that well for me, but I've experimented with a lot of different lead magnets and often surprised by what actually works. And you're probably going to have to test, but from basic email sign up forms all the way over to unlock this video now with your email address, whatever it is, be open to trying. You might have to try different things. Probably you will, until you have something that totally connects with your audience, what they're looking for. Next, some cutout here. Okay, there we go. I think we're back. Hopefully the audio was still working during that time. But get your social media account set up, register your preferred usernames, all that kind of stuff. Do it in advance. Stick to the ones you plan to use. Honestly, most people just without resources, without team members, without all of that other stuff that comes along with growing a career or a business, you can't really expect to be good on more than one or two platforms, and probably one. And so you should, try the platforms, try the main ones, and don't deviate from the main ones unless you've got a really good reason. Just stick to stuff like Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, Pinterest, LinkedIn. Don't go to YouTube. Don't go too far outside of those. Stick to those, but utilize them and register your name and set up a presence and experiment, and you'll figure it out. You'll start to see what your preferred platform is and what works best for you. And once you know what that is, focus on that. You can have stuff going out elsewhere, but really try to prioritize and focus on the one or two platforms that work and make sense for you. Next, make sure to ask for reviews. Generally, kind of the easiest way to do this, at least on Amazon KDP, but you could probably figure out how to do this on just about any platform. Even if you're setting up sales on your own website, there's probably a way to do this. Run a promotion. And Amazon lets you do like a 3-day free promotion. Whole idea is if your book's new, make it free for 3 days. Drive a bunch of traffic, get people to download the book. Downloading the book will boost the book in the algorithm. More people will see it. More people will download it. Of course, you're not going to see royalties from any of those downloads, but guess what? Your book was not going to be a huge money maker anyway. Probably not, unless we're selling millions of copies. So you might as well use it as a marketing tool to generate further business, fans, grow your email list. And then monetize those people down the line. So make sure to ask for reviews. And the best way to do this is to run a promotion, but some of your friends and family and other people might be willing to review your book, even if it's not free. Maybe they'd be willing to buy a copy and actually read it and actually review it. But incentivize, and also look into the terms and conditions of whatever platform you happen to be using, because sometimes incentivizing people is kind of a sticking point and not something you're supposed to do. The incentive is, hey, the book is free. While you're at it, while you're downloading it, could you also review? I think that's okay, but offering other kinds of incentives, while can be super effective, just be careful, because there are certain platforms where that would be discouraged or looked upon unfavorably. Next, prepare your marketing materials. What do we need? What are we talking about here? What kind of materials should we be preparing? And this is best done before, but sometimes your book's already out there and you got to figure it out now, or whatever the case, or your launch is like today. So prepare your marketing materials, things like supporting content of all kinds. That could be quotables or social media posts. We used to have tweets. I don't know where those went. I guess we've got posts now, right? We don't call them X's on X. So you got posts. You can prepare book summaries of different kinds to test them. Why do you have to have one? Your first description might suck. Have more summaries. Video trailers, if that's something you want to do. QR codes to send people to various platforms. Print materials. I did it like a giant postcard type thing for the launch of my first book, because I didn't have physical copies yet. But people seem to like those. And weirdly, QR codes were really not that cool back then. For whatever reason, became a much cooler through the pandemic. And now people are more familiar with the technology and use it frequently in restaurants and other places. So QR codes. And you can combine QR codes with print materials. You can combine QR codes with supporting content. I'm using StreamYard right now. What's cool about it is it's got QR codes built in. There's a QR code. Wild, right? You could put your phone to the screen right now, and it would take you to one of my websites, indiecareerformula.com. Also, branded merchandise I think that's an untapped sort of thing. I know it's a little bit challenging, because if you just took your book cover and put it on a shirt, how much would people really want that or need that? But yeah, might have to think creatively about it. Maybe you just get a really cool logo developed that goes on your book, but also goes on your shirts. So I think there's a way to solve that problem if need be. So consider branded merchandise as well. But basically have supporting marketing materials ready at the deploy, because if you're flailing after launch, you're going to miss some opportunities, or it's just going to take you another year or two to figure out your entire marketing process. And that's generally not what you want to do. Authors would do well to build momentum at launch and continue to build momentum afterwards. Finally, seek media attention. This would be word to the wise. Tim Ferriss, you probably know The 4-Hour Workweek. Great book. I recommend it. I've read it. Very inspirational. How did it become such a big success? He went to conferences. He built relationships with all kinds of bloggers, and apparently PR and media as well. I don't know, that part is ostensibly, but he did build a whole bunch of relationships with bloggers that I know. And that's all he did at first. But then he kept in touch with them. And when he had a book that was ready, he reached out to those people and said, hey, I've got a new book. Would you like to cover it? Would you like to check it out? Here's a free copy. Maybe you could talk about it on your blog. And before you knew it, it exploded. So you might have to think creatively about press and media, because somehow, some way, your thing has to be a story. It can't just be, look, new book from complete unknown author. There's no story there. You have to find an angle. You have to find a story. But either way, mentions on blogs, interviews, podcasts, radio, YouTube. Again, you could seek out YouTubers to be interviewed by or featured by, influencers, directories. There's different places to look. Try to find some media attention. Next, launch strategies that actually work. This is from my experience. These are the things that I found worked pretty well. You may find otherwise, which is why it's worth trying different things. But the first would be gather advance praise. So you want to borrow the credibility of other people, especially when you're unknown, especially when nobody knows what you do or what sort of books you write. You've probably picked up plenty of books, and if you can't think of any right now, go to your shelf, pick a few books off your shelf, look at their inside. Usually at the very beginning of the book, before there's a disclaimer, there's like 20, 30, 40, 50 reviews or testimonials or quotes, so oftentimes by notable people. Now, you might struggle to get them from notable people, but if you've built up some relationships within your industry, within your clubs, within your organization, you can probably utilize those. And if you were to reach out to me, I'd probably be willing to help you. I might even write a foreword for you if you're super, super nice and willing to do things for me. Well, again, if you, we'll just say if you're super nice, but I might be willing to do some things for you. So I'd say, yeah, I might be a good person to hit up when you need something like that, because I can cook something up real fast. It doesn't take me long to put together a little quote for you. Bottom line, though, gather the advance praise, borrow credibility. I did this for the new music industry especially, but I did do it for my other books as well, books like Productivity, Performance, and Profits, Black Book. I think it worked best for the new music industry. I think the markets were considerably less saturated. I think the attention was a little bit easier to get at that point in time, but I could still see it being a valuable thing to do today. Host launch parties. I mean, people don't do this enough. I think it's like maybe a publisher would set this up for their authors, right? But independent authors, they might just do a book reading or something like that. Now that's good, you know, if you got a book signing or a book reading or stuff like that. But maybe also consider something a little more extravagant, a launch party, a gala, something where there's music, something where there's a little bit of a show, where there's a little bit of entertainment. Maybe you could give a little bit of a speech about your new book. It doesn't have to be long. Maybe you could do a little Q&A. I did stuff like that. I think that's what makes launch parties worthwhile, and they do seem to generate results. They do seem to help with that process of launch, even if the audience is small. And so you don't have to attract a ton of people. And renting a venue does not need to be expensive. Just depends on where you book and when and how. I've worked with coffee houses before, many of which were either willing to pay me or willing to do it for free. So I'm pretty sure you could figure something out. Use tiered offers. If you don't know what that means, very typically stuff like, you know, credit cards will have a bronze, silver, gold. Nowadays, more commonly, they're finding nobody wants bronze, nobody wants silver, whatever. I guess it's just human psychology. So it's like gold, platinum, diamond. The stuff that you can't really realistically compare, but they all clearly have value in different ways to different people. So tiered offers are just very simply like that. You get something cool at gold, and it might just be the book. You get something cooler at platinum, maybe a book and a few other bonuses, templates, frameworks, workbooks, journals, courses, who knows, private Facebook groups, who knows. And then you get something even cooler at diamond. Use those types of tiered offers. I found that worked very well for the Essential Guide to Music Entrepreneurship. And honestly, I might have really pumped that up a little bit more if I'd had a little more experience behind me. I kept it pretty simple at the time. I think it was like $17, $37, $57. You could go way, 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 way up from there, especially depending on your industry or audience. To that end, check out Nathan Barry, nathanbarry.com. He's not really doing the book thing anymore, but his books are still available. And he has tiered offers, and that's where I modeled. That's where I learned from, and it worked. It did work. So utilize that. Use countdown timers too. I think doing that in conjunction with your offers is not a bad idea. Make them limited time offers. Next, run promotions. We kind of talked about this already, but let people download your book for free. You can do this with Amazon KDP generally, and you may be able to do it with all other platforms. Pretty sure you could set it up. And if it's on your own website, although you probably have a tougher time getting people to your own website than Amazon to pre-order a book or download a book. The idea is the same. I'm sure you could figure out how to do it. So let people download your book for free and ask for ratings and reviews in exchange. This will boost your book in the algorithm, or at least help people to notice it and get more recommendations and get more praise. And you're starting to see how this builds some momentum. And next, to get some exposure. This was useful for me. And I will certainly say not everything I did did anything for me, but you got to try anyway. There's certain blogs, certain podcasts, certain channels out there that could help you generate results. Being seen on the right show, being featured on the right blog, being on the right podcast at the right time will definitely help you generate more book sales. People will want to check it out. Next, something that I think people really focus on a lot, but probably don't need to give a lot of attention. That's something that's going to be a repeating mantra as I talk about this section. So maybe we should just get into it, but let's talk about algorithms. First point, don't concern yourself with algorithms too much, right? There's some good tips in the slides there, by the way, but I think it really comes down to this. Concern yourself with building and nurturing a relationship with your audience, because your audience, those are the people that you're going to be sending to buy your book. And if they actually go to the page and they actually buy a book, you get a boost in the algorithm. So it's your job to set people up to buy your book. That's what you want to do. So that's the last point. Send interested buyers to the order page. Another way of saying this, or more marketing term for that, would be conversion rate. Focus on conversion rate. So rather than sending a whole bunch of people there who may not buy, may not be interested, might not be their cup of tea, focus on building your list, because those people are warm to you already, that are interested in what you have to offer. Then send them to your book. That'll help you boost the conversion rate, which will help you boost in the algorithm. Keywords. Do cursory research. You could do some in-depth research if you really wanted to, I suppose. I suggest just doing some cursory research. You can look at competitor books and the words they're using. Look at the best-selling ones, right? What are the best-selling books in your niche or industry? The rankings are pretty easy to find. Have a look at those. Have a look at the top 10, 20, 30, 40 books and see what terms and what keywords come up over and over. And if you don't even know how to do that, then I think there's different ways of handling this, but you could just copy and paste all the descriptions and reviews into a document from Amazon, into a PDF or something like that, feed it into ChatGPT and say, what word, give me the top 10, 20, 30 words that were most repeated in these descriptions that I've copied from Amazon. You could also probably use a word cloud tool. It's kind of fallen out of fashion, but it still works great for this kind of thing. Take all that information, put it into a document, copy it and paste it into a word cloud tool, and that'll spit out a word cloud. And the most recurring terms are going to be bigger and the least recurring terms are smaller. So word clouds are great tools for discovering keywords and that kind of things. And don't worry too much about keywords. People who don't know you won't buy your book unless there's a very compelling reason to do so. Give them a compelling reason. We've already talked about that. But just because you're getting your book in front of eyeballs doesn't necessarily mean those eyeballs care, especially if they don't know you, especially if they don't have a relationship with you, if they're not on your email list. This is the first time seeing or learning anything about you. That's not the time, pretty much. So as much as you might appreciate getting some kind of traffic to your book, everyone's excited. I'm excited when there's a little bit of traffic to my book. There's no benefit to you unless people are buying. So keywords are not going to make or break you for the most part. Just don't be stupid. Or just, don't put crazy keywords in there that have nothing to do with your book. Don't be spammy. Don't scam. Keep it simple. Think of the words that you used in your book over and over. You could even just Feed that into ChatGPT and ask it which are the most used words, or feed that into a word cloud tool and find the most used words in your book. That might even be the easiest way. So those are a couple of tools or a couple of ways to help you. Categories. I say this is so basic. Find the categories your book belongs to. Don't put a how-to manual and biographies. It's pretty common sense. I mean, if you get lost here, let me know, but I can't imagine you would. I will also say your book may benefit from niche categories. It is not guaranteed to, but in some cases, and I would say in most cases, finding some niche categories that aren't just the broad 10 or so categories there are can probably help your book in rankings. So they're not too hard to find. You can find them. You might want to leverage niche categories. Next, platforms seem to help you assign your book to relevant categories. So even if you kind of mess up, but have it generally in the right categories, I could be wrong, but it seems to me that Amazon KDP adjusts your categories for you so that you have the most chance of benefiting from what you've created. So you almost don't have to think about this or worry about this, which goes to the last point. Don't concern yourself with categories too much. Okay, that stuff doesn't matter. How to keep selling books after launch month. This is a challenging thing. First would be prepare additional marketing assets well in advance. Again, we kind of covered that already, but having things ready means this week you're not sitting around going, oh my God, I have to create a new blog post, or oh my God, I have to create 13 Instagram posts. If you already have the stuff ready to go, you can schedule it out and have it going out on a systematic, continual, repeatable basis such that you're continually engaging an audience who may or may not be interested in buying, but hopefully is interested in buying your book. So have stuff ready to go. Next, use the Dream 100 strategy. What does this mean? This means identify people, publications, organizations, websites, influencers, bloggers, podcasters, YouTubers, anyone who has the access to the audience or has access to the audience you're trying to reach out and build a relationship with. There's going to be, unless you've somehow managed to land in a niche that doesn't exist, that is completely unique. And I don't know why you would do that. That's just bad marketing. Chances are there's already people within that sphere of influence who have access to your audience. And if you took the time to build a relationship with them, got featured on their blog, appeared on their podcast, came to their podcast show or their YouTube show or whatever, you would get a bunch of sales. You would get a bunch more followers. People would start wondering what it is. Like if you're any good anyway, that part's also important. But if you're any good, people are going to want to connect with you, find your book, buy your book. So doing the Dream 100 strategy, thinking really hard about and taking the time to like really identify who's out there, who has access to your audience, making a list of them and actually intentionally building a relationship with them. Oh, before we go there, basically, there's different ways of approaching the Dream 100, and some are easier than others. Some of them do involve building a long-term relationship with these people, but in some cases, you can literally ask a question and be like, "Hey, could you feature me on your blog?" And some people will be like, "Yeah," or "Yeah, how about $30?" So you don't some stuff you don't know unless you ask, and sometimes it's really quick. It's just if you see an opportunity, reach out. But in some cases, it's like dating and marriage. You might have to date someone in your Dream 100, especially if they're very influential, especially if they're really huge, especially if they're a celebrity or well known. You might have to date them for a long time before they're going to say, "Yeah, sure, I'll invite you onto my show." So just be mindful of that. You might want to start small. You want to start building relationships with all of your Dream 100 immediately, but just be aware of the fact that you might not be able to get any kind of exposure from some of the bigger names immediately. Also, you'll never get anywhere with the Dream 100 strategy if you don't add value to people. I really can't stress that enough. You want not just to be in their community and read a few of their newsletters. You want to show up in these communities, be a part of the conversation, and intentionally add value. because that's how you're going to be known. Some people just do this. They find someone on Instagram, or they find a group of people on Instagram that they want to connect with because they know they have access to their audience, and they comment every day on their stuff every day. Over time, like those influencers, those celebrities, those gurus, whoever they are, those experts are going to start to recognize faces and names. So if you show up in their comments every single day, that's one way to build. Like, there's just so many ways to build the Stream 100. It doesn't have to be hard. Next, document the journey. Give yourself or give your audience a chance to see behind the scenes. So create behind the scenes content. Get your friends to film you. Get your family to film you. Get your spouse or significant other to film you. Get your kids to film you, whatever. Gather some behind the scenes content. Share some new realizations or new insights since you published the book. That's another thing you can do as far as documenting the journey. Another thing you can do, answer frequently asked questions that come up, or respond to the types of reviews that you're seeing in the reviews section of your Amazon page or wherever it is you're selling your book. Respond to those reviews. Those are a few ideas of like documenting the journey and creating additional content. Next, book speaking engagements. Get out there, share your knowledge, share about your book, do book signings, do book readings, whatever it is. Find yourselves opportunities to speak for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is. Start small, build your way up. Speak anywhere, speak everywhere. Just ask for the opportunity every chance you get. Look for opportunities, again, to add value to people, to help people, to support people. There's people out there doing this. There's people out there hosting events all the time. Find opportunities on event websites like Eventbrite. Look on Facebook, look elsewhere, look everywhere, look online, Google it. There's all kinds of events happening all the time. Look for ways to insert yourself and add value to people. That'll help you get more exposure for your book, because you being seen and sharing your knowledge and expertise is what's going to help sell books. Next, get media attention. We've talked a little bit about this too already, but by any means necessary or any means possible, find an angle for your book, find an angle or story for who you are and what you're doing and the cause that you're promoting and the impact and difference that you're trying to make in the world with your book. Even if it is entertainment, even if it is fiction, doesn't matter. Find an angle, find a story, share it out, get it out there, and get a list together, do your research. There's directories out there. You can look for magazines. You can look for bloggers. There's all kinds of stuff. Believe me, unless your niche is completely wild and out there and you shouldn't be doing that in the first place, there's going to be people out there covering the topic that you're covering. So find them, build a relationship with them, get that attention, get your story out there, get your angle out there. The long game, series, backlists, compound growth. People like to think this is how it works. And I guess in my experience, it hasn't always worked out this way. But I will say, not a horrible idea, because there are different ways to benefit from these things. So let's get into that briefly. First would be think strategically about creating a book series. So creating a book series is a great idea. Why? Because if there's book number 1 and people know that there's going to be a book number 2, they're naturally excited to find out what that is or what that's going to be like. So they're like, if there's a continuation of this, I would sure like to check it out. So let me buy book number 2 as well. And if they read at the end of book number 2 that there's going to be a book number 3 in that series, same thing, right? If they liked book number 2 and if they liked book number 1, they're going to be excited for another book in the series. So think strategically about that. Also realize you can have multiple series. It doesn't have to be just one. You could create one series and then you could create another series and then you can create another series. Yes, I know it's a lot of books. You'd have to write a lot to get to that point, but that is a great way, because if your book is always a standalone product, that can be a slightly tougher sell, but people like to see they have trouble leaving a thought as it is. It's like watching a TV show, right? If it ends on a cliffhanger, they're like, oh, gee, I don't know I don't even know if I like the show, but it ended on a cliffhanger. So I'm going to have to tune in again next week for the next episode. Or, binges nowadays are far more common, but oh, this one ended on a cliffhanger. I guess I'm gonna have to watch the next episode. And then that just happens. That was like Lost, right? Just happens over and over and over again. Game of Thrones. Oh, I have to see what happens next. Let me watch the next episode. 2 a.m. Oh, this episode ended on a cliffhanger. I have to see what happens next. Let me watch the next episode. That's what happens. Create that effect with book series. Next, backlist. Here's the thing. Continually make people aware of your other books. That's all there is to it. It's not complicated. Generally, what you're going to find, and this is what traditional publishers recommend, this is what traditional publishers and people who've been steeped in the industry for a long time say is appropriate. Have a list of your books in the back of the book, also by this author. To me, that's just minimum, though. I think if you're going to be self-published anyway, why wouldn't you talk about your other books within the context of the book? Right? It's like, if I'm talking about some of the things that I've went through that were super challenging, I might mention Digital Nomad and the fairy letters and say, hey, like if you want to know about that part of my journey, it totally sucked and was awful, and maybe you'd like to kind of find out what happened, check out Digital Nomad and the fairy letters. Why not? Mention your other books within your book. I don't see why that would be a downside. Even you could even set it up. I mean, maybe some people would disagree, or maybe some people wouldn't feel good about this. So, I mean, do what feels good to you. But you could even just set people up and say, "Oh yeah, well, I covered that." You're reading the Essential Guide to Creative Entrepreneurship, but in the new music industry, I covered this aspect of creative entrepreneurship that's really essential, and you should probably get that book too. I think it's okay to be far more aggressive than traditional publishers are being. And normalize it. But again, it's just me thinking like a marketer, I suppose. The more books you have, the better. In theory, this is true. And I think in practice, for the most part, it is true. It just has yet to prove true for me. So I haven't always benefited from having more books. In fact, maybe, possibly, I've confused my audience by having more. So we need to be mindful of that. We need to be careful of that. It might have a lot to do with titling. I'll talk about some of the mistakes I've made too, but it might have a lot to do with titling. It might have to do with having or not having a series. It might have to do with other factors that why is this author talking about this subject when I know them for this subject? It could have to do with different factors like that. So you're just being mindful, but in theory, hopefully, my wish for you, my hope for you is that the more books you publish, the better it gets. And if your first book sells 10 books a month, then I hope your second book sells at least 10 books a month. And then you've doubled your profits. And then I hope your third book sells at least 10 books a month. And then you've tripled your profits. And it keeps getting better from there. Lessons from award-winning and best-selling books. Here are my own lessons, things that have proven useful to me. First would be stake your claim. This is something I did with the new music industry. I wrote the book, The New Music Industry. I created the podcast, The New Music Industry. Whenever I linked to my book from my website, from other people's website, from blogs that I wrote for, the link would be The New Music Industry. It's really staking my claim and saying, this is my keyword, man. If the word even comes up, if people even think about it, there's something there. The New Music Industry. I set up a separate website. I put up some of this stuff proved problematic later because I wanted to move the content, or I had too many websites, or I had too many things going on. But initially, I think it would proved useful, and it helped the book sell, and I helped the book get discovered because it was a pretty good keyword, I feel, at least for that particular industry. So the New Music Industry, I just set up all kinds of things, and that might be something you think about too. Like what sort of claim could you make? Or is there a keyword? Is there a concept? Is there something unique about your book? Is there something that you could just say, like, this is me, this is my niche, this is like what I do, and then build websites and build links and build other media, podcasts, shows, YouTube channels, whatever, all named the same thing, and then guide people towards your book. That's a strategy to think about. Next, gather feedback from friends. This has generally proven very useful. I guess in a couple of ways. The first is it can lead to conversations about getting praise from them, reviews, quotes, or if your book isn't out yet, advanced praise. You can begin to gather testimonials and quotes or whatever. You can gather feedback from them that could become part of your marketing. Two, constructive criticism can lead to breakthrough improvements. The book you see on screen is Productivity, Performance, and Profits Black Book. This book benefited from some initial criticism from friends going, I can't endorse this work. At best, this is a 5 out of 10. Some of my friends said stuff like that. Thanks for radical candor, I guess. But that made me work harder to make it a better book. And it did become a better book, and it became an award-winning book. So that's why gathering feedback from friends has been good, has been useful, generally a good thing to do. Next, be open to ideas. You just never know who might come to you with what sort of thought. And one example for me would be the Essential Guide to Creative Entrepreneurship. I already had the Essential Guide to Music Entrepreneurship at the time, which was kind of a smaller handbook size book versus the new music industry, which is really like 60,000 words plus, really kind of the average length of what you would expect from a book of that size or that volume. But the Essential Guide to Music Entrepreneurship was much smaller. And I had someone come to me and say, well, we're doing these creative community projects. Like, how would you like to create the Essential Guide to Creative Entrepreneurship? Because we have all these different creatives, and we got poets, we got writers, we got musicians, we got different kinds of people coming to us, and maybe having a book that kind of more broadly applies and more broadly appeals to different types of creatives would be useful. So I did. And he was like, maybe you could just retool the Essential Guide to Music Entrepreneurship a little bit and make it into what it needs to be, because probably there's a lot of concepts that would transcend. I still kind of ended up writing it from scratch in a way. So, and I didn't have to do that, but basically what it was suggested that it would be a slight retooling of the Essential Guide to Music Entrepreneurship, which got turned into the Essential Guide to Creative Entrepreneurship. And overall, it wasn't the most amazing book, but it actually did pretty well. And I did the most PR for it, for sure. I sent the book to a lot of people, and I don't think anyone ever covered it or even took a photo and posted on social media. Like, how hard is that to do? Thanks, David Andrew Weeb, for sending me a book. Like, geez, guys, I don't know. You could do something. You could do something. You could call me up. You could interview me. You could put me on your podcast. I'm just putting it out there. I sent you a free book. I'm not asking for a lot here. Not even saying it was a great book. I think I've written better books since, but seems to me, there's opportunities there. Anyway, the Essential Guide to Creative Entrepreneurship did become one of my bestsellers. So clearly it was worth doing. Mastermind and Brainstorm. I've been part of mastermind groups. They have been pretty great in some ways and sometimes not so great. And I guess that's just the reality of being part of any sort of group that's business minded, I suppose. But when working with others, one of the benefits is you can brainstorm stuff like titles and themes and subtitles. And some of my books, they got their titles, like the Music Entrepreneur Code, from those types of discussions. So they're totally worthwhile. Really had a great time masterminding with Brent and Greg. I guess we met up in Colorado, Silverthorne, Colorado, the one time up in the mountains. And that was a cool experience. So having people like that also are up to different things, maybe writing their own books, maybe doing other entrepreneurial ventures, being a part of a mastermind group like that can help you really brainstorm really good content, really good ideas for your books. Put your personality into it. This is ultimately one of the ways in which I managed to improve the Productivity, Performance, and Profits Black Book from its original form, was by injecting more of my personality and giving people examples, injecting some humor, injecting some personal stories. I talked about a lot of different musical acts and some of the things that make them good, some of them make things that make them not so good. And that, I think that's one of the reasons why it ended up being pretty highly engaged, and one of the reasons why I ended up becoming an award winner. And then next will be Your Book is Your Business. this is something that kind of a realization, a recognition that came to me as I was putting together this presentation. Your book is a really powerful piece of your business when you think about it. Because for a long time, I was going like, well, a book's a book, and people are either going to be interested or not. And you know when you have a good book on your hands and not, based on initial interest in sales and confusion, and whether people are get it or don't get it. You know what I mean? And I'm now realizing that actually your book could totally be the centerpiece of your business, because first and foremost, it kind of indoctrinates people and prepares them to be your customer. Like if they read your book, they resonate with what you're saying, they get value from it, and they like it, then they're going to buy additional, not just additional books, but anything else. You might have a coaching program, you might have a course, you might have physical products, like whatever it is you happen to be selling or whatever your business revolves around. If people are indoctrinated into who you are and the way you operate through your book, then they're more likely to do more business with you in the future and be really great customers because they've read your book. You're sort of training them to behave in a certain way by having them go through that indoctrination process. So your book can be an excellent lead magnet, right, to bring people into your business, whether you charge something free plus shipping, or charge $5 for ebook or whatever it is, or don't charge at all and give it away for free. Whatever your process is there that works, or give one in exchange for an email address. That might not be a horrible idea, rather than just the free strategy. But if you have different steps that you can utilize to get your book into the hands of the people who are likely to do business with you, this is a great approach. That you can have your book be the centerpiece that you promote, and not even have to promote anything else in your business. Just get your book out there, and then that will educate people, that will indoctrinate people, that will prepare those people to do increasingly larger amounts of business with you. So I kind of wish I knew that or realized that sooner, but I see it now. How books 1 to 5 performed versus books 6 through 13. Well, I'm just going to tell you right now, this is probably not what you expect, but we'll get into it. One thing I will encourage you to remember, you've probably heard of the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining it, but the basis is this, that 80% of your results come from 20% of your effort. There's different ways of phrasing the 80-20 rule, but it pretty much always works out that like 20% of your employees do 80% of the work, or 20% of your employees get 80% of the results. It pretty much works applied to just about anything, and it works like that. But I think what we're really talking about here with books is 80% of your results is going to come from 20% of the books you write. So if you have 10 books, chances are about 2 of them are doing most of the heavy lifting. You're getting the most value from those. You're getting the most sales. You're getting the most royalties. You're getting the most reading time. Out of 10 books, it's going to be 2. My top performing books are The New Music Industry and The Essential Guide, or the New Music Industry, The Essential Guide to Music Entrepreneurship, and The Music Entrepreneur Code. So respectively, that's like book number 1, book number 2, and book number 5. Those ones have done better than all the others. The New Music Industry, the first book, has outclassed the rest. I do have some theories. I do have some ideas as to why it might have something to do with what I mentioned earlier about staking my claim. That might have been a piece to it. But I certainly spent more time, probably time, money, energy, resources marketing that book than any of the others as well. Because I kind of went with the philosophy that the best way to market my last book was to put out a new book. But I don't know how well that worked out. But I'm not done, not anywhere near done. I was just, today I was actually reading Seth Godin's Linchpin. This is a little bit of an aside. Here's the book right here, The Linchpin by Seth Godin. And I've been getting into it lately. I'm always reading multiple books. I have multiple on the go. But he talked about putting out 100 books. So before we even get this Linchpin, which is a pretty well-known book, he promoted it all, as Seth does, go on every podcast to talk about it. But he did 100 books before even getting to that one. That made me think, okay, I'm just getting started here. There's lots more to do. Long way to go. But back to the presentation. So the Essential Guide to Creative Entrepreneurship also did well, all things considered. And although it's not one of my bullet points, I would even say start your year the right way. I only have one book out of one book out of books 6 through 13 that did better than Start Your Year the Right Way. So I'm kind of surprised because to me, that one was kind of a stinker, but currently it's not turning out to be the biggest stinker at all. So overall, books 1 through 5 actually did quite well. I'm impressed. Books 6 through 13. Well, certainly they benefited from everything I learned to that point. And I'm mostly speaking in terms of formatting, writing, interior layout, templates. I'm pretty sure the writing got better. I'm pretty sure the storytelling got better. All that kind of stuff got better, but the process got more efficient because I had my templates, I had my frameworks, I had everything ready to go. All I had to do was drop the new content into those templates, and I basically had a new book. So I kind of got that part figured out. The process got more efficient. So in that sense, books 6 through 13 benefited from everything I learned. There were some confusing titles, and I think the most confusing title, and also just by the fact that it didn't really sell too well, although that could be for a lack of adequate marketing, it was the Music Entrepreneur Companion Guide. In fact, Amazon kept asking what this book was about, and they're like, you should put summary in the title. Excuse me. You should put summary in the title, because they thought it was a summary of another book. And I'm like, well, it's kind of more of a companion guide. That's why it's called the Music Entrepreneur Companion Guide. So yeah, the book should have been called something different. In fact, I might go back and do that. It maybe should just be called the Music Entrepreneur Secrets. Yeah, and then that would probably boost, just by virtue of having a better title, would probably boost its sales. As I'm thinking about it, that might be something to do. I certainly spent some time exploring new topics in books 6 through 13. So topics like productivity, nomadic travel, and although this was always part of the plan, Flashes of Elation was actually supposed to be book number 2 and ended up being book number 12 or 11 or something like that. But Flashes of Elation also explored what it means to be a sensitive creative. So I started exploring different topics, and I felt I had kind of earned that, but whether the reader agrees is a whole other matter. The books showed some promise in the early going, especially Flashes of Elation. And the reason it being that Flashes of Elation managed to get a few pre-orders long before it came out. I mean, that book sort of ended up coming out 8 or 9 years late. That's a long time for anyone to wait. And perhaps a topic that had more resonance upon its initial release, or when I initially started promoting it versus when the book actually came out. Still, it did have a little bit of early traction, which led me to believe it would actually be a really good seller, and it hasn't been. And that could just be development time. So yeah, contrary to what you might think, these books 6 through 13 represent the underperforming 80%. That's just the way it is. The 20% of the books that are getting the results are basically the new music industry, the Essential Guide to Music Entrepreneurship, and the Music Entrepreneur Code. Books 1, 2, and 5. And that doesn't mean I still see potential for growth, especially with Digital Nomad, The Renegade Musician, and Flashes of Elation. I think these are really good books. The Renegade Musician, man, I feel like I am getting around to writing even better books now than The Renegade Musician. But when I wrote it, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do a whole lot better. Like, this is sort of the magnum opus of my music industry books. But in the future, and I didn't expect that I might be writing more books about the music industry. That's not something I was planning to do, but it's looking like I might have at least one more in me. And also in preparation for some of the things that are coming up, including speaking engagements. But that's what I had to share with you about self-publishing. That's everything. You might have questions, you might have other topics or things that need to be covered. I'm happy to answer those. Do let me know. Leave them in the chat, leave them in the comments, and I'll get to them. So how about this? How would you like to be featured in a Facebook group of over 2,100 members? Spark Infinity began as a place for creatives by creatives for creators by creators, and it still is. And the thing we're interested in most is your story. We're more than happy to create presentations and share insights with you, as I've done today. But the thing that brings me the greatest joy is spotlighting you, giving you an opportunity to share your story, whether it's an interview, casual conversation, roundtable, or even a show and tell. Happy to accommodate whatever format suits you best. So if you're ready to go live with me, drop a me in the chat or in the comments. That's M-E in the chat or the comments. We look forward to talking with you. Also, we still have some people in the group who don't seem entirely familiar with the way things work around here. I still see people posting their books or affiliate links or product recommendations. I honestly don't want to see any of that until you've been on our show at least once. So if you want to share your promotional content, that's cool. But before you do, you should come live with us, right? Then we're willing to put a spotlight on you. And like, what better way to showcase your work than to be featured on our show for 30 to 60 minutes? Seriously. So we're all about spotlighting people at Spark Infinity, but prefer to do it the right way. Drop a me, that's M-E, in the chat if you're ready to go live with us, and I'll be in touch. That's been my presentation for today. I think for the rest of December, we might lay low, although we might do a holiday hangout. So if you guys want to do a holiday hangout and join me and possibly Susanna and just have a chat, laid back chat for the holidays, do let me know. I would totally be interested in featuring you again. And I'm just going to go to the comments here for a bit. I see that Nirvana wants to be featured on the show again, which we could totally do. And you could also join me for a holiday hangout. And really great stuff. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. And I guess we'll see you again soon. But keep an eye out for the daily videos that I've been posting. Those have come out of the Leadership Lab Bootcamp. And I've been sharing some of my story. I've been sharing some of my beliefs and values and stories. So check those out, because that's probably the main thing you're going to be seeing. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.